I think it's kind of silly how many more exams. All right, guys, aloha from Hawaii. We're in Kauai celebrating girlfriend's birthday and time for an AMA. So this is probably gonna be split up into two parts. Second part might be in Japan, and hopefully the audio is okay. We're using, I forgot my lav, so we're using the audio I use on the car channel, which you can check out right up here. First, what is your opinion on night float versus call? Both are very challenging. Night float, at least you have the consistency of your schedule. You know when you're starting and stopping. Call, it's not gonna be every single day, but call is very disruptive because you're generally not sleeping when you're used to sleeping, and it's a bit unpredictable. So both are tough, both are challenging, and unfortunately, there are some rules and regulations about working after call, but those are oftentimes disregarded. I know that I've experienced times when I have to work a lot more right after call than I was supposed to. But yeah, overall, both are quite negative to circadian rhythm. Do you regret being a plastic surgery resident after all the hard work? I get this question a lot. No, because essentially what I'm doing now, I couldn't have done unless I did all that stuff. I can't tell people how to get into a very sought after residency unless I did it myself, right? I can't, there are some people that do that in the industry and they are a bit misleading. But that doesn't sit well with me and I would never want to do that myself. How'd the match turn out this year? Any surprise? Psych was competitive, wasn't it? Let the people know. We are working on a video right now going over all the data, all the surprises, so stay tuned for that. Keep exposing the cheap labor concept in the most free country in the world. Comments like this is like, okay guy, we are in one of the best countries in the world, I'm convinced, United States of America, but it's not without issues. So just because there are a lot of great things here doesn't mean that there are also issues. How good is life after leaving medicine? It's gonna vary based on the individual and what they're doing. So for me, I don't mind working hard on things that I care about. So like even here in Hawaii, most mornings I'm gonna work out, eat breakfast, and then spend 4-5 hours doing actual work. And I think that would bother a lot of people. And if you're working a more traditional job and not starting your own business, then probably don't have to do that, right? So it's a trade-off. I like it. It gives me a lot of flexibility. Hawaii for 4 nights, Japan for 10 nights. And I feel like I'm building something special and it's more meaningful. So I think meaning is a really tricky subject when it comes to your career because people want to find a meaning and part of it is finding, but part of it is also developing. So I consider myself very fortunate based on my path, but it's definitely not for everyone. I don't want to be one of those people that just glorifies entrepreneurship because there's nothing wrong with the 9-to-5 if that's what's best for you. What's your opinion on direct primary care or concierge care clinics? I use a concierge doc. I think that it's unfortunate that to get a certain level of care and attentiveness and things like that, sometimes you feel the need to do so. I've been with him now for over 2 years. This is now my 3rd year. And it's unfortunate. It's pretty pricey, but the level of service I get is so much better. And I'm also one of those people that, I'm wearing a Whoop band and an Apple Watch and a CGM, and I'm a little bit more active than the average 33-year-old when it comes to doing tests and wanting to do workups on things that a lot of people probably would have no interest in. And I have some friends who just graduated med school. They're starting residency in, I think, family medicine and IM, and they plan on doing DPC in the future as well. So if you're able to provide high quality care to your patients, then I think there's a need for it in the market. And it's unfortunate that it's come to that. But I had a few pretty bad experiences going through my insurance company, my regular, the primary care doctor that they assigned me to essentially. And I've been a lot happier with concierge. How does it feel to drive such a nice Lotus? I'm loving it. You can learn more on the car channel. Let's say you had one shot at an opportunity and you blew it. How do you forget and not let this event ruin other areas of your life? You don't need to forget. You should remember it. You should use it as a learning opportunity, right? Because if you fail and then forget it and don't learn anything from it, then it was all a waste. But if you fail, learn from it, grow, improve, now it's a net positive. There's a silver lining there. So the key thing is we're all going to fail. We've all had failures and setbacks, myself included, right? And the question is not how do you avoid failure at all costs, it's how do you get up? What story do you tell yourself? Because I've talked about this many times, but the truth isn't as black and white as we think. There's a gray area, right, in the middle. And that gray area is the story you tell yourself. So yes, you failed, right? But the boundaries as to what you can take from that is, I'm a huge failure. I shouldn't do this thing anymore. I should give up. Or, hey, this was a learning opportunity. I made these 3 mistakes, and next time I do it, I have to tweak things, and I'm going to come back at it next year. Let's say you're applying to med school and you didn't get in the first time. What are the best part-time jobs to get as a high schooler to introduce me to the healthcare industry? You know, honestly, I think volunteering is going to be really valuable. Getting exposure in various hospitals or clinics, shadowing. And once you're in college, I'd say EMT is also another great avenue. There are a lot of different things here, so follow your interest, but also don't feel pressure to say that you have to start building your CV super early. When I was in high school, I worked as a library aide like for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months, less than a year. And that was valuable just to be an employee for, you know, someone else and see how that feels. But right now in high school, I'd say focus on exposure, focus on just seeing what is out there, and then allowing your interest to then guide you further. What's your opinion of chiropractic specialists? They have board certifications called diplomates in neurology, DACNB, radiology, orthopedics. You ask any MD about chiro, and you know, I think there's some good there. I think there's also some really dangerous stuff. So like I did foundation training, which was designed by this chiropractor, and I thought it was really beneficial. It helped me with my posterior chain strength and lower back pain and such. But then you also hear the horror stories of a patient coming into the hospital after a bilateral vertebral artery dissection after neck manipulation, right? So I think there's some value, but there's also some danger. And there are certain things, like I had someone help me with my arm, but they weren't like cracking bones and manipulating. They were just like helping me determine what was going on with some wrist and forearm pain. And I believe that person was a chiropractor as well. So just like with anything, it's hard to use a broad brush and say all good, all bad. It's gray area, right? In any industry, you're gonna find people that are great, people that are not so great, and that applies to medicine too, right? What's the best strategy to pay off loans in your opinion? Aggressively as possible or play the long game? It's gonna depend on your risk tolerance and your loan interest rate. And by the way, informational purposes only, no financial advice here. Let's say the payment terms was, you know, I was gonna pay it off in 5 years or whatever. Now in hindsight, you won't know this, but if I had taken that money, put it in the stock market, rather than paying off my loans lump sum, I would have come out ahead because I was getting way more than 5% even after taxes in the stock market. I do broad index funds, but you don't know that in any given year. So stock market to me makes a lot of sense long term, but over 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, even 10 years, you're not necessarily sure what your returns are going to be, because long term, yeah, you're probably going to have somewhere between 6 and 10%. You know, depending on the study and accounting for inflation, but also expected value. And, you know, Ben Felix on YouTube is a really great resource, I would say, that goes into all these things in much greater detail. There is some risk there, whereas paying off the 5% is a guaranteed rate of return. It's not just, okay, it might be 6, it might be 4, it might be 3, it might be 10, right? It's just 5% guaranteed. So there are pros and cons to each. I also found some psychological benefit to just paying off my loans and being done with it. That felt really good. I remember the day. I remember the day that it went to 0 and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm accomplished. I paid off. I paid myself through college. I paid myself through med school, and I am now zeroed out, and it felt good. What to do with physics in MCAT? Can't remember formulas, seem to forget. Do a lot more practice questions. That's gonna help a lot. If someone couldn't clear MCAT in their first try, is it good to redo it or better to reconsider another career option? Oh, no, definitely redo it. We've helped a lot of people with med school insiders and MEM, you know, who are not passing the MCAT, get much better scores and get into med school after. There are multiple factors. It's not just how smart you are. It's not just the resources you use. It's also how you study. It's how you manage your time. It's these intangibles. That's what separates the people that are getting really high scores from really low scores, right? So is there some level of like someone's intelligence changing their score? Sure, but people emphasize that too much and they don't appreciate, and same with the resources. You know, they say the resources, like the resource and how smart you are is all that matters. Not really. People focus on 3 things: the resource, how smart you are, like how good of a test taker, and how many hours you study. It's an incomplete picture. Like those are good approximations, but test taking is a skill that you can learn, right? You're not fixed with your intelligence or your test taking ability. That can be improved. Your materials, you want to use the highest quality materials, but it's not just the materials, it's how you use them, right? And that also ties into the amount of time you study. You can spend hours and hours reading and rereading stuff, or you can use active learning methods and learn that same information much quicker, and then spend that extra time doing more practice questions. So we actually do have the Med School Insiders MCAT course, which is now in its full release. We have 3 full-length, 2 half-length practice tests, MEM included. We have a 5-10 score guarantee as well. We're really excited. It's very effective based on the data we've seen so far. So if you don't get a 5-10 or higher and you complete the course, and there's some very minor qualification criteria. We don't want to be like some other companies where it's like impossible to actually meet the criteria. We want to have the first honest 5-10 score guarantee. Then you get your money back. Simple as that. So check it out, medschoolinsiders.com/MCAT. Number 3, what's the difference between family medicine and internal medicine? Check out our So You Want to Be IM and So You Want to Be FM on the Med School Insiders channel up here, because that explains the two, and we also talk about the differences in those videos. What's your advice on how to find the best laptop for starting med school? What OS, Windows, Mac, Chromebook, Linux, and screen size should I go with? I would say Windows or Mac. Don't do Linux, don't do Chromebook. I've used both Chromebook and Linux, and I appreciate them for what they are, but the amount of troubleshooting and tinkering and such, it can be kind of fun. It can also be kind of a headache, and it's going to take time away from what you actually want to be doing, which is studying and preparing for your exams and whatnot. Screen size, I mean, you can go smaller, like 13-inch, and then use a second monitor, or you can go larger and have a bit more real estate in case you want to do split, side by side. What's specs? So with how you're studying for med school, I mean, other than like some occasional 3D anatomy apps, which are not necessary by any means, they are cool, but a high quality textbook is going to get you most of the way there anyways. Nothing's going to be super demanding. So regular, you don't have to get the high end gaming stuff, right? You can get mid or low tier and be totally fine. I've been really happy with MacBook Pros and MacBook Airs over the years. And the reason I had Pros was for video editing, but now I just use an Air. And I think for studying in med school, that could work fine. They have a 15-inch Air as well. I'm not super up to date with the Windows offering, so I can't comment. If you only had 10K to your name, what would you drive? Some used beater, Accord, Camry. Actually, maybe a Scion FRS. I think those are great sports cars. That was my first car when I was a broke student. Flipped question, if you had 500K but had to spend all of it on one purchase, what would it be? Honestly, I'd purchase some index funds, which I know is probably not what you're expecting or asking. Like, I think that spending that much on a car, I'd struggle to choose something that I think is worth 500K. Maybe a Porsche GT car and then have another 200K left over. I want to become a computational neuroscientist in the future. Do you think obtaining an MD along with my PhD and no residency would be a good decision? Computational neuroscientist. I'm not sure how much value. You should ask someone who's in the field. I'm not an expert on this. I don't know how much value getting an MD with a PhD would add versus just a PhD. Because to be a neuroscientist, you don't need an MD. I would check with someone who's more knowledgeable than me about that topic. We have neurologists and neurosurgeons at Med School Insiders, but no neuroscientists, because we have exclusively MDs, DOs. So yeah, I'd get in touch with a neuroscientist if I was you. Favorite place that you've traveled thus far, where would you recommend a newbie traveler go? Bermuda, Cape Town, top 2 for me. But going to Japan in 3 hours, so we'll see how that is. I wanted to go since I was in middle school. Very excited, also seeing the Formula One Grand Prix, so stoked. For a new traveler, go to a place where it's not too large of a departure from what you're used to, because there's a lot of learning and there's a lot of optimizing and getting used to traveling internationally. So if you're from the US, then maybe try like Canada first, or Europe, where, an English-speaking country in Europe, where things aren't going to feel as foreign versus going to like Taipei or Vietnam or India, where it's going to be more of a culture shock, because things are going to go wrong when you travel, and you don't want to be in a situation where you get scammed, you lose money, you're unsafe, stuff like that. So focus on places that are not too dissimilar and are fairly safe, and have a good time. How do you put your priorities of life in order, such as work, family, friends, leisure time, gym, etc., and still sleep 8 hours? So any tips on balance? I have none currently. Also fave F1 driver ever since you will be judged very critically. Number one's got to be Ayrton Senna. More recently would be Hamilton. And the reason I say Hamilton is because he comes from very humble beginnings. Senna was from a wealthy family, but he did a lot of great things, very skilled driver. There's actually a great documentary called Senna for those who are not as familiar. And my girlfriend and I watched it recently. So I've watched it a few times. Her first time getting her into Formula One before the Japanese Grand Prix. And she's like, dude, I love Senna. And she's like super sad at the end and like really invested. It was cool to see her understand the sport a lot more and his significance. So I think that's a great place to start. And then Hamilton, I love that he has the underdog story coming from a less privileged background, because the overwhelming majority of F1 drivers come from a lot of privilege. Now, putting priorities of life in order, it's about like, you kind of have your top things, and those are the things that you don't compromise on. So sleep, I will occasionally compromise on it, but very, very rarely. Exercise is up there, and then work. So yeah, like I'm not the most balanced in the sense that I don't have that much leisure time on weekdays. I don't see people. I'm just working the whole day. And there's never like a balance point where you figure it out and you're done. It's more about constantly seeing what feels right and what doesn't over time, and adjusting and changing things. So it's like you want to have this harmony with all different areas of your life where you feel like you're spending your time well, because we only got those 24 hours, all of us. So even on this trip, like I'm not as leisurely. I'm still working in the mornings most days, but I'm still exercising too. So I'm not, compared to the average person that goes to Hawaii, they're probably doing a lot more touristy things, having more photos and seeing more, sights and more experiences. But that's okay, because I just have different priorities. So just figure out what you're okay and not okay with, and then just live true to yourself. Why do you prioritize good sleep quality? What should a med student implement in their daily life to improve sleeping quality? We made an entire video on this very early, several years ago, on the Med School Insider channel. I think it's sleep quality, how to feel refreshed with fewer hours, because you are going to have fewer hours to sleep in med school. That's just nature of the beast. And in those instances, you need to prioritize quality, since you're not getting enough quantity. Ideally, you should be prioritizing both, but quality becomes even more important in those situations. Do you envision AI negatively impacting physician employment? If so, which specialty will be most affected? Really great question, hard to predict. Possibly negatively impacting things, but also augmenting, right? Allowing someone to then use AI to guide treatment decisions and increase efficiency and output. So what does that mean for the job market? We don't know, right? Do you then need fewer physicians in certain specialties? You already see a lot of AI in things like radiology, so we're gonna see how that continues to develop. And we'll be doing more videos on AI and various specialties in the future on this channel and on MSI. As a high school student, my parents have always influenced me to become a physician. It's the only career that I'm really aware of. How do I know if it's actually the right fit for me, or am I just choosing it because it's the only thing I've ever known? I mean, you're in high school, so you got all of college to decide. In college, explore, do some shadowing if you are interested in medicine, but don't feel like you have to pursue that. I understand, like, you want to make your parents happy, and they want what's best for you, but they don't always know what that is. And they may, a lot of parents push their kids into something not realizing that it's not what they truly love, and long-term, it's not going to be the best thing for them. So get exposure and allow your curiosity and your interest to guide you when making that decision. Don't feel pressured. All right, it was getting a little bit loud by the pool. It's 9 o'clock right now, so everyone's waking up in the pool. So we're gonna move out here. Favorite watches. All-time favorite, Omega Speedmaster, Motorsport Heritage, going to the moon. Cool story. But I don't wear it when I travel, because essentially with chronographs, you're concerned more about how water resistant they are with the pushers for starting and stopping the stopwatch. That watch also has some personal significance, because I got it last year when I would have finished plastic surgery residency. There's a story to that which you can check out over here. My current favorite versatile daily driver is the Rolex Submariner 126610. Don't have to worry about water. So was on a dinner cruise last night and we were getting splashed a lot and not worried about this. Went into the water in the beach here at the hotel earlier, and getting this wet, I'm not concerned about it. So I like that peace of mind. I mean, it's designed to go in the water, and there's also, I think, like a 5-year warranty or something in case something were to happen with water resistance. And then the Seiko SNDD87. It's a cheap quartz for like 150 bucks, but I just think it looks really cool on this brown leather NATO strap. And I'm gonna be getting a Grand Seiko, probably the Shunbun in Japan. I'm going later today. And spring drive, cherry blossom inspired. We're going during cherry blossom season. So it's not a chronograph, and I love chronographs. But yeah, Speedmaster is probably my all-time favorite. Daytona is also up there, but I don't own a Daytona yet. What's a decision-making philosophy you find particularly useful and perhaps use as a default rule? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I don't have like a list of decision-making philosophies that I can choose from in my head. I would say what I strive to do is like focusing on truth, and also for certain decisions, if you're emotionally charged, getting away from that emotional state, calming down, getting where you can be much more logical, less emotionally invested. If you're sad or if you're angry or if you're whatever, even happy, right? It's not just negative emotions, even positive emotions can really skew your judgment. And focusing on logical reasoning and truth seeking, rather than, patting the ego and stuff like that. So part of it comes down to being very self-reflective and trying to compensate or at least control for those biases that we all have. What are your parents like? Effects on career choice? What about siblings? Opinion on Punjabi music? I enjoy some Punjabi music. I was on the dance team for 4 years in college. I'm not like super into it where I have like favorite artists, but there are like certain songs that are just bangers, right? And you gotta tear it up on the dance floor when those come out, especially at Indian weddings. My mom is very supportive and she knows that I work really hard. Like, I think parents can become, they'll adopt different parenting styles for different children. So I'm very different than my brother. My brother went to computer science, but he's like polar opposite of me in a lot of ways. And as a kid, she would, push him to work harder in school and, hey, grades are important. For me, I think it was like 2nd or 3rd grade. I remember her sitting me down and being like, hey, Kevin, you don't always have to be number 1. It's okay that you got 2nd on the test or whatever. So I was always very competitive and intense. So when I ultimately resigned from plastic surgery residency, I told her, and she's like, are you sure? I said, yes. She's like, okay, good. You worked too hard, because she knew I was doing plastics residency plus the businesses plus the other business. And she knows how important health is, right? And she saw, like, when I got hospitalized and when I was having a really rough time early in college, when I first got sick and lost like 30 pounds from an already, not very large frame, she understands the value of health and really prioritizes that. So I've been very fortunate that she supports me with my decisions. Best way to get information about private practice options after residency? Anything but academia seems like a hush-hush topic. So yeah, academia is going to be the default because you're training in academia, right? But when it comes to private practice and other options, most of my friends did not go into academia, the ones that have finished residency. And it just comes down to like connecting in your community, speaking with fellow residents, speaking with other attending physicians, things like that. You'll get, as you start getting towards the end of residency, and you start focusing on job options, a lot of people are going to be talking about these things, reaching out to you as well. And things will make a lot more sense. You'll have more clarity at that point. So I wouldn't stress about it too much until later years in residency. How do I develop a work ethic? How to study with focus for longer hours and be consistent in the long run? I often get distracted and tired while studying for short periods. Distraction elimination is number 1. Get your phone out of there, TV, all that nonsense. Don't give yourself options to get distracted. That makes it a lot easier. And number 2 is find the kind of, experiment with the kind of environment and stimuli that'll help you. So for me, I loved just doing practice problems with electronic music playing in my room, lights kind of dim, but I have like a table lamp. That was just, I would very consistently get into this state where I could just grind for hours and hours. But it also kind of depends on the work, right? So I find for myself, certain types of work are more conducive to that than others. So don't be afraid to experiment, but the number 1 thing to focus on is, if you can't focus for long hours, it's distractions that are really getting you. So eliminate the distractions in your immediate vicinity. What do you do if you aren't smart enough to get into med school but still want to be a doctor? I don't think you have to be that intelligent to be. I realized the way I said that can make it sound like I think doctors are dumb, which is not what I'm saying. It's more about work ethic and study strategies. So focus on those 2 things. We have all these playlists, totally free, Med School Insider's YouTube channel. The reason that I'm really proud of that channel blowing up, 100K subs in 5 months from 0, no following. The reason it blew up, the production quality was complete garbage. The content, the actual study strategies are such fucking gold. It took me years to figure that stuff out. And that first ever video, it's like 700,000 views now, right? Garbage production quality. We remade it a few years later. It's like a few million now. But that single video distilled everything that I knew. I mean, you got to go into more detail in our other videos, but it's a big picture overview that distills everything you need to know. And if you follow that stuff, it works. That's why our channel grew so fast. I'm really proud of that. I think it'll help you break that thought process that you need to be a certain level of intelligence to get into med school. And it's more like, I need to put in the work and I need to study in the correct way, because If you study in the incorrect way, you need to put in a lot more work to then get the same result, right? So if you can study much more effectively and efficiently and put in less time and still get the same result, why not do that? Sure, the studying is a little bit more challenging and slightly more uncomfortable at the beginning until you get used to it, active study methods versus passive. But like you get used to that, you adapt, and then you just get better results in less time. So it's not your intelligence that's the issue. I did not matriculate into US or Canada, cycle for the third time. Should I go Caribbean? You should try DO. We actually have helped our college student actually from a few years ago who didn't get in 3 times, just like you. They were now applying for their 4th time, and we helped them get into a USMD school. And I think a big part of it is many times people keep reapplying. They're not addressing the things that can actually move the needle the most. So you may say, hey, I have a low MCAT GPA, sure, and we can't really change your GPA that much unless with an SMP, a post-bac, etc. MCAT, we can improve a little bit too, depending on what your score is. But there are so many different factors to an application, and you want to figure out what are those weakest areas where if you put in X amount of effort, you get the biggest bang for your buck. So I would say check out Med School Insiders. We have helped people in your exact shoes, but I'm not sure if you applied DO or not. You should definitely be considering DO before you consider Caribbean. Why did you hide your race? Talk more on this, please. I never really hid it, but I just wasn't very open with it. I would kind of joke that I'm half Indian, half Antarctican. I think growing up, I never felt I didn't feel like I really fit in ethnically into any group, because in Indian circles, people always questioned whether or not I was Indian because I am lighter skinned. My name's Kevin, and I'm not the best at speaking Hindi Punjabi. I can understand and speak very poorly, but I didn't really fit in there. And then obviously I'm clearly not white, so I don't fit in there. And when I got older and with YouTube, when I first started YouTube, MSI was totally anonymous, which is why I used to call myself Jay.
Jay, am I right? Here we go, Jay.
First initial of my last name, right? On MSI until a year later, I came out, hey, by the way, my name is actually Kevin. So I feel like there's a certain risk of giving people information and you can't undo it. And I never thought that race was a big deal actually, but some people close to me, they're like, don't disclose it because they're only going to use it against you. And I was like, okay, sure, I can always disclose it later if I decide. But I wasn't necessarily hiding it. I just wasn't super open with it. If I was hiding it, I wouldn't have made videos where I have my mom and talking about paratha and stuff like that, Indian food. Or I wouldn't be joking on Instagram about being half Indian and half Antarctican, right? So I just don't think it's a huge deal. And all right, final stuff, speed round, because I gotta get packing and head to the airport. Are you on track with your 2024 goals? What's going well, what's not going well? Fitness goals are not going well because my physical therapist says I have a lot of misalignment on the right side of my body. So my right shoulder pain that's been an issue for the last 15 years has been exacerbating. So I'm no longer doing upper body. I feel myself get all soft and nasty, but I'm still hitting lower body, and I'm doing a lot of shoulder rehab right now. Business-wise, things are going really well with Med School Insiders. We've launched a lot of exciting stuff. A lot of stuff is just happening this year. We've been working on these things for years previously, and things are just, by coincidence, all culminating now. So MCAT course, fully live with that 510 guarantee. Really proud about that. Research course, finally done. 10 modules, incredibly comprehensive. Very proud of that. That's gonna help you essentially learn all the tips and tricks that we used to get 50, 60 plus research items. So I have 65, and the co-creators each have, I think, 60 plus themselves, maybe more now, because it's been some time since we recorded the earlier sections. And the reason I'm really proud of that course is I feel like each of us brings a different skill set, and we combine all that into that single course. So it's 3 people that have been very productive and excelled in research, each sharing their own insights and their own strategies. So very proud of that. And then Casper course, it is using AI. It's incredible, actually. It does emotion detection based on your video responses. We're really proud of that too. You can actually get started on that one for free, and then there are different tiers you can upgrade to as you desire. You can check out all of those down in the description, and we got some coupon codes down there as well. What's your favorite wearable from all the ones you've reviewed so far? I'm a procrastinator and you seem to know how to fight it. Do you use an app or product to track your productivity throughout the day? Well, I just did a video comparing Apple Watch versus Oura Ring right up here. Those are probably my actual 2 favorites. I use the Oura at night for sleep tracking. I love it for that. I don't like it during the day as much personally, and I like the Apple Watch during the day for fitness and for various like smartwatch functionality if I need to ask Siri something or control the lights in my house or whatever. So I'm actually wearing it on my bicep now. Normally my shirt will cover this, so I don't feel like a total weirdo rocking 2 watches like I was before. Trying the Whoop as well. Having a few issues here and there, but trying to troubleshoot that with Whoop, and we'll be making a video on that soon as well. And then with the procrastinator stuff, it comes down to being very self-reflective as to what works, what doesn't. One of the reasons I love traveling is that leading up to travel, I am feeling the pressure to get stuff done because I am not going to be able to work as much during the trip. So I get very productive in the weeks leading up to the trip. And then during the trip, I'm no longer in my normal environment, my normal routine. So I'm very intentional with my time, and I can oftentimes get into those very productive states more frequently. So they don't happen every day, they don't happen all the time, but like on Friday morning, or maybe it was Saturday, you know, in the morning I worked for like 4 hours, got a lot of stuff done. In the evening I worked from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Not doing that every day on vacation, but like I was just in the zone getting stuff done. And it happens at a much higher frequency during travel because I'm so much more mindful and intentional about how I'm spending each moment. So I don't know how wearables don't really help me with, you know, staying focused. If I am struggling, Pomodoro technique is my go-to, and also removing distractions, as in taking my phone and charging it in the other room. Why is there another med school requirement? Yeah, referring to AAMC PREview. Look, we're gonna help you guys crush that. We actually already have it integrated for free in the Casper course. We will be separating it out very soon, but if you get the Casper course right now, the AAMC PREview is included for free. You know, if you ask me, honestly, I think that AAMC, they saw Casper's success and like the cash, and they're like, hey, we can do something similar and, you know, make some revenue ourselves. I think it's kind of silly how many more exams pre-meds have to take now to apply to med school. It's a bit ridiculous, but like, we're gonna do what we can to make it as painless as possible for you guys. So Casper course and PREview bundled together down in the description. It's gonna help make the process a lot less painful. Do you feel like your upbringing had an impact on how successful you are now? Absolutely. I went to India recently. I was like, damn, if I grew up in India, my life would look so different, right? But I think you're probably talking about maybe the way my experiences and the way that my family treated me. I think growing up, I had some negative role models in my life, which teach you what not to do. And I think that's actually a powerful tool of learning as well. I had a lot of stress and instability, which actually put more of a fire underneath my butt because I hated some of the pain associated with that, and I didn't want to experience that again. So that helped to drive me harder. And I think the one that I'm most grateful of is just having a loving mother that like believed in me, because I think that does a lot for a child's confidence and their self-efficacy as they grow older. Part of it too is just biology, because like, you know, growing up, I have an older brother, and you know, our personality was showing as early as daycare, where like I was aggressive and like competitive with other kids when my mom was doing daycare, and my brother was like the opposite and just wanted to be sweet and like make her proud about how well he was behaving. And you'll see some of those consistencies as we get older. So yeah, part of it's genetic, but I think that sometimes we fall into this victim mindset that, oh, having a tough upbringing or tough circumstances or not as many resources makes things harder for us, when in reality, there's a spectrum of truth and you can choose your reality. So yeah, it would be it'd be great if I had more resources or more stability or better health or yada, yada, yada. But also those things I could use as fuel. I could use them to, it depends on your mindset. I could use them in a positive light rather than just having them be this negative thing dragging me down. Make sense? Content creation with interest versus paying the bills. I talked about this a bit in a reaction video recently. There are pros and cons to different approaches. I have chosen to focus on entrepreneurship as the main thing. That's where I spend most of my time. The most public facing thing is YouTube, obviously. So it may seem like I'm just like a YouTuber, but less than half my time, probably less than a third of my time is on YouTube. Most of my time is on building and running the businesses. So I did that intentionally because the pros and cons make sense to me. So with content creation, Med School Insiders is, you know, a well-oiled machine. It's a business. Jabal and Cars is a hobby. This channel is also kind of like somewhere in the middle. And that allows me to approach Jabal and Cars purely for fun. I lose money on every video. That's okay. I'm sure in a year or two, we'll probably break even. right? But I get to drive amazing cars, have amazing experiences, make amazing friends, and I love cars. So like approaching that with interest and just for fun allows me to not put the pressure on myself where I have to start reviewing cars I don't like, or increase my frequency, or if I had to pay the bills with that, it would be very stressful. And I've seen many of my friends who do car reviews on YouTube or on Instagram or wherever, and some of the passion is lost and they have to remind themselves to still love the process and still love the hobby, because it's really easy to get that beaten out of you. Now with Med School Insiders, the YouTube channel, the entrepreneurship approach versus the content creation approach. So a couple things here. Number one, faceless channel. So it's my voice, but not my face. That allows me to have the flexibility where in the future, depending on how much or how little I want to be involved in that, let's say in 10 years, 15 years, I want to sell the business as an example. That allows me to remove myself and still maintain that benefit and that value, right? The other thing is content creation versus entrepreneurship, focusing on generating views versus focusing on what's best for the business. So we will intentionally do videos that we know are going to tank, but they will help drive traffic to our website. Casper course, okay, cool. That video is not going to do very well, but it's going to get a lot of people checking out our website and trying out our Casper course, etc. And this channel is somewhere in the middle where I'm like working on building a personal brand, but I'm also having fun and like having random ideas about med school and medical education, and then also like fitness wearables. So not putting too much pressure on myself, because I want to, when it comes to content creation, I want to maintain the fun. I want to maintain the enjoyment and not just make it this thing that I have to do. Because you see so many YouTubers that are burning out and they stop, or they're trying to figure out a way to make it fun again. I don't want to get to the point where I don't enjoy creating content. You know, this channel and Jabal and Cars just bring me so much joy. And Med School Insiders is cool too, but for a different reason. Hey Kevin, last part caught attention. I agree that everyone should be more resilient and we should be mentally tough, not only to any comments, maybe also like you, interested in a surgical specialty that has a lot of toxic characteristics, but I think of it more as how I can be better than why is he pimping or asking me. Yes, that's the right mindset to have. Would love a longer video on the topic, even if it's for the premium members of the channel, as I really appreciate your thinking and opinions. Thanks for the great question. I think that we can definitely cover this in a future video. My initial thoughts, this is tough to find the middle ground because you don't want to abuse people. Abuse is not good. Being unnecessarily harsh and whatever is not good. But on the other hand, having a bit of discomfort, having a bit of stress, having a bit of like that prickly nature is not always terrible either. There is some, like, what is it? The Ebbinghaus, not Ebbinghaus, it's the, I'm forgetting the name. There's this curve, right? The stress performance curve, essentially, where your performance peaks at a medium level of stress. Too high, it goes down. Too low, it goes down. So yeah, if you are approaching things in medicine with the mindset of, hey, like, it's going to be tough, it's going to be rough at times, but these are all experiences in service of me becoming the best physician I can be, you're going to last a lot better. You're going to become a better physician. You're going to be happier in the process and find more meaning from that versus, you know, saying, hey, this, you know, I got pimped for this thing and toxic nature. And again, middle ground, because, you know, I heard a story about a loaded scalpel being thrown at a resident. That's not good. And under any circumstance, that's a huge fucking liability, huge safety issue. But on the other hand, like, being asked a question and then feeling embarrassed or ashamed because you didn't know the answer in front of other people, like, I think that we just need to be very careful to not go in either extreme. I'm really glad you made the change and that you were motivated enough to have vision and drive with the challenges you face to come with such a tough choice. To be honest, at this point, I'm 37, still a MO, not sure what that is, and things have been rough since COVID. My mom getting ill, losing my dear friend, sorry to hear that. Also an amazing doctor from health issues. Just wonder where you get your passion from, even though after all you've been through. I really love helping people, but I'm burning out and I don't know if I should specialize or leave. It's just hard to decide. Thanks again for inspiring videos. Hey, thanks for your comments. Things are tough right now. Focus on support, on getting your feet back under you. Speaking to a therapist, family, friends, loved ones, trusted people you can speak to and be very real with. That's gonna help a lot. I don't think life is meant to always be like rosy and great. Like, there are seasons, there are times when things are gonna be tough, and that's okay. I think one thing I focused on a lot in 2022 was just acceptance, so that helped me a lot when getting through various challenging things, right? So just acceptance. Because I think for me, and maybe for other people as well, we resist the bad, the uncomfortable, and that actually paradoxically makes it worse. Whereas when we accept, like I remember when I first got IBD, like my first flare up with IBD at 18 years old, it was so painful. And I would try to distract myself. I did the unthinkable. I bought the Tetris game on my old LG Shine, which was like $5, but oh my God, like it was such a, looking back, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. It felt so wild and reckless. And I tried to distract myself, and eventually I realized that just by observing the pain and being with it and looking at it with curiosity, I was like, huh, it's not as bad right now. Versus like, oh God, it's coming. I'm trying to resist it and push it away. That helped me a lot. That helps me a lot to this day with challenging times. And yeah, sorry I can't be more helpful. I'd say that other things that have helped me, like journaling, being really introspective. Again, talking to people helps, because when you're forced to articulate your thoughts and not just have them jumbling in your mind, you get a lot more clarity, a lot better articulate thought that makes sense and you can actually follow. So journaling helps with that. Talking to people, whether it's a therapist, friends, family, helps a lot with that. And a lot of the time, just working those thoughts through yourself gives you a lot more clarity than the other person. Like the friend or the family member or the therapist can just sit there listening to you, and you talking it through gives you the clarity. You're like, wow, thanks so much for your help. They're like, I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything, right? But yeah, I hope things get better for you. And thanks for your question. All right, guys, I got to get to the airport. Thank you for your questions. And there'll be another AMA in a few months. Much love. See you then.